Rolling through a Thursday afternoon. Let's get to the racing report, brought to you by CanTorque. There are a few tools who listen to the show, but none are built as well as the tools from CanTorque. Check them out at cantorque.com. Colin Livingston joins us once again. And Colin, pretty dominant performance from Leclerc start to finish. He controlled that entire race. It's interesting how the pit, they would start him on mediums and they start Sainz on hards. And I know that they had the strategy that, he could last longer. And I know that worked for Albon. It didn't really work for Alonso. But when you've had the best car, like, I know that something with his gear had something to do with his bad start. It wasn't just the tires or gearbox or something. But I still felt odd even before the start. I was like, why wouldn't they go on the same tires? Like, didn't that seem like a risk that was unnecessary when you have that good of a car?
It was a tough decision for those guys to make because they wanted to run the long game. I think they really underestimated how they were going to get freight trained by the mid pack. If they started on the same tire, they would have been pretty much locked into the same strategy as everyone else around them. They tried the off strategy to be able to run longer, to be able to leapfrog these guys. And they had also hoped, I believe that they had hoped that after, 4, 5, 6 laps, the hard tire was going to start coming in. Unfortunately, with Sainz getting, freight trained, he lost 5, 6 spots right on the start. And then he was really getting stuck into catch up mode. It went from bad to worse. He was one of the drivers that, really just, he kind of took himself out. It was an innocent enough looking mistake. Just ran a little deep into turn 11, slid into the grass, ran into the gravel, and his day was done. I think it's human nature for us to question what these teams do. They usually know a lot better than us what the strategy is, but just seems like that kind of goes along with another thing that we'll probably talk about. But these drivers really seem to be having a hard time figuring out the braking on these new cars. Like I saw, a dozen different times where drivers were running deep into some of these corners. They know how to drive, they know what they're doing, but these heavier cars and this new tire, these bigger tires and slightly harder tires, it really seems to be challenging these guys.
So when you have a situation like that, and obviously there was the wrong choice, what is the plan? Like, does everyone just sit down and review the protocol I went through to make sure it doesn't happen again? Or is it like, hey, we made a mistake, we move on?
They run countless simulations before the race ever starts. They've got, for Ferrari specifically, has full-time drivers in the simulator running every setup before it gets in the car, running every kind of conceivable notion. They really have run the race dozens of times before the race actually starts. The thing that they can't account for is human nature, which, unfortunately caught Carlos Sainz. Obviously, Leclerc ran away from the field. The fact that he had a 20-second gap over P2 doesn't really tell the story, because there was a late race caution that negated the gap that he had. They were, Red Bull's obviously suffering through mechanical issues with Verstappen failing to finish 2 of the 3 races. Perez happens to be lucky. I think, Sainz just really, I think he just got overwhelmed, then made the classic mistake of trying to overdrive. And when you try to go fast, you almost always slow down.
Colin Livingston joins us. You look at that, Russell and Hamilton, their best finish for Mercedes, they're 3rd and 4th. The Constructor Series now, they're actually ahead of Red Bull.
Yeah.
They're 2nd, and Red Bull's 3rd, and McLaren, is 4th. But Ferrari's quite a bit ahead right now. And you just look at the way Leclerc is driving. Like, other than that one restart where Max was close to him for a short period of time, there really wasn't any trouble in that race. Like, their car just seems to be on a different level than him. Now, would his car, outside of the tires, would the setup between him and Sainz's car really be that different?
No, not really. I mean, there's going to be subtle differences for each individual driver, but and the drivers have, you know, a little bit of control inside the car to be able to, you know, move weight forward, backwards, you know, change brake pressure, diff pressure, things like that. But the basic setup of these cars, I mean, you know, you obviously watched the race, Gregor. I mean, you saw that Leclerc, they had the worst porpoising that they've had all year. That car was like, it looked like a jackhammer going down the straightaway. They can't do a lot more with the car. Like they're maximizing it for speed and not so much for comfort. The other thing, I don't know if you noticed this at all, but you know, F1 came up with a new rule, what they'll you know, from now on know as the Verstappen rule, because he's been such a little jerk on restarts. You know, he's pulling up beside the drivers that are leading. Like when he's in second place, he's like, as they're kind of trying to weave their tires, he's pulling up beside these guys and preventing them from actually weaving and scrubbing up their tires and getting heat. And he's trying to intimidate these other drivers. And F1 actually, before this weekend, said he can't do that anymore. So, you know, one of Max's little tricks is no more.
CanTorque Race Report with Colin Livingston on the Jason Gregor Show on TSN 1260. Switching over to IndyCar, you know, you sent us a video of Simon Pagenaud,
Yeah.
and you know, I think I could have driven the way he drove. Maybe explain what happened and how that could happen to these talented drivers.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I can describe what happened, but I'm not sure that I can explain it. You know, Pagenaud, you know, he's a former champion, you know, highly successful driver, former Penske driver. You know, for people who haven't seen Long Beach, it's one of the most legendary races on the IndyCar calendar, but it's a street race, which means it's really, really, really tough to pass. It's really tight racing, and it's a lot of follow the leader. Pagenaud came into turn one on the outside, which is a left-hand corner with Takuma Sato. Watching really close, I don't want to second guess what a driver did, because when you don't have the helmet on, it's tough to understand. But he really gave him a lot of extra room as they got through the corner, got pushed up into what's called the fountain. So it's basically this you know, it's a dolphin with a waterfall and a really nice floral arrangement around there. He got pushed into the flowers a little bit, ended up spinning his car backwards, which, you know, those things can happen. But as he tried to right himself, I don't know if he just had a bit of a temper tantrum, if he made a mistake, or if he just, you know, something untoward happened with the car. But instead of spinning himself around, he launched himself directly into the flower bed and high-sided his car, which ended his race. Like it was the most bizarre thing I've seen in a long time.
Colin Livingston joins us in the CanTorque Racing Report. Colin, the Pinty series, pretty close back to normal. They're going to go to Newfoundland, going to the Eastbound Speedway. And for local fans, they'll be in Wetaskiwin on July 23rd, Saskatoon, July 27th. Now, isn't it usually in Saskatoon first, then comes to Edmonton? Does that really matter at all for the drivers? Does there a benefit from going to one place first to the other?
No, I mean, we're just happy to have these races back on the calendar. It's gone back and forth. We've done in the olden days, and in my first days, we used to run Wetaskiwin on Friday and then do Saskatoon on the Wednesday. It doesn't really matter the orientation. I'm, again, just really, really happy for our friends out at Edmonton International Raceway and Wine Group Raceway out in Saskatoon. But super cool story that you know, we finally get to go out to St. John's and do some Pinty's races. I mean, the guys out there, Mike James and his group, I met him in about 2014. They've been trying ever since then to get a Pinty's race out there. They've been trying hard. So seeing that, you know, we've got a 3-year deal to get out there is just awesome. It's going to be, you know, this is going to be one of the biggest races that we ever do. So yeah, it's, you know, hopefully we can get a couple of our drivers on the screech on Friday night, so they're hurting a little bit on Saturday, and we'll have a bit of an edge when we get to the track.
Let's look at NASCAR. I'm thinking that maybe Ty Gibbs needs to have a little bit of screech. You know, this guy had another situation, and maybe talk us through the post game conversations that should have between racers that maybe are unhappy with another racer's approach to the game or to the race.
Yeah, I mean, suddenly the expression "live by the sword, die by the sword" pops to my head. Ty Gibbs, again, grandson of Joe Gibbs, the owner of Joe Gibbs Racing. Very, very talented driver. I mean, I don't want to make any false comment that he is where he is because he hasn't got talent, but obviously he's got a few dollars behind his name, which is the limiting factor for most, the reason why most drivers don't get a level of success. When you carry that family name, though, I don't think you can be walking around thinking that the world owes you an awful lot. And as we talked about last weekend, he made a really, 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 in my opinion, an overly aggressive and an illegal move to claim a win. Last weekend, they're in Martinsville. Coming to the closing laps, there was $100,000 bonus on the line out of, a couple of the regular only a handful of the regular drivers. He got hit a little bit. He got moved up the track. Two cars, kind of split him. Made a bit of, honestly, it was incidental contact. It wasn't a really big deal. At the end of the race, though, little Gibbs threw a series of temper tantrums, making extraordinarily heavy contact, smashing the back of the car. Sam Mayer. Then tried to spin him, then got to pit road, then had an altercation. Mayer came up and talked to him with his helmet. He was taking his gear off. He ended up with his helmet off. Gibbs still had his helmet on, and then Gibbs started throwing punches, which is like there's a number of adjectives I can use, and a lot of them aren't really appropriate for radio, but let's just say it's not very gentlemanly when you're still wearing your helmet, trying to punch a guy in the head. And, if he retaliates, he's going to break his hand, especially when you're the one that's at fault. And again, in the NASCAR world, this is just considered, Saturday short track racing. I think Gibbs got a $15,000 fine, and that's pretty much where it'll end. So
now, before we go, FIA has launched an investigation into the behavior of Artem Severukin. He was a Russian driver who was competing under an Italian license. He won his class at the 2022 European Karting Championships. And then on the podium, he thumped his chest twice, flashed a Nazi salute. And I watched it, and then he was just like laughing like he thought it was so funny. Now, so maybe he's just an ignorant, dumb 17-year-old, right? But now he's lost his ride, has he not?
Yeah, I mean, there's an FIA investigation. He was dumped by his team immediately. In his apology announcement, said that, I'm ready to face the consequences. I did a dumb thing, but I didn't really mean anything by it. I mean, it's boilerplate kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen to this kid. Before this incident, I'd never heard of him or his team, to be honest. He could just, be an idiot. I guess that's what the investigation is there to find out.
Yeah. So, don't mean anything by it. Well, what do you mean? You don't like that? Yeah. And that's why, maybe young and dumb, but obviously there's been some severe consequences. It's funny that the karting guys have a more severe consequences for that than they do for Gibb, who made multiple ridiculous, and he's a grown man who just kept making dumb decisions. I like what you said. He basically had a temper tantrum numerous times, and all he got was fined $15K. So it's rather unique to see the difference in how they come down with consequences for both sides. Colin, we look forward to talking with you next Thursday. Have a good weekend. Happy Easter.
Yeah, same to you guys. Thanks a lot.
That's Colin Livingston in the CanTorque Racing Report, brought to you by CanTorque. There are a few tools to listen.